Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make cookie dough bites. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I'm really excited to share this recipe for edible cookie dough bites with you. Now, this is a super simple recipe. It's safe to eat because we use no eggs and we're going to be heat treating our flour. Now, the first thing you want to do is you're going to want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You are going to need a cookie sheet that's been lined with parchment paper like I have right here, and we are going to add our flour to the baking sheet. You'll need 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. You'll scatter the flour pretty evenly over the baking sheet. I'm going to use my spatula to spread it into an even more even layer because we want it to bake evenly and make sure that it is heat treated all the way through and completely safe to eat. Now we'll take this over to our 350 degree Fahrenheit preheated oven where it's going to need to bake for about 7 or 8 minutes. So once our flour is heat treated, it's obviously going to be pretty warm. So we're going to set this aside and you'll want to let it cool completely. We'll go ahead and proceed with the rest of our recipe at this point. To make these cookie dough bites, you are going to want to grab a large bowl and we're going to start with 1 cup or 2 sticks of unsalted butter, and you want this to be softened. I usually let mine sit at room temperature for about an hour. The next thing you're going to need is sugar. We're going to start with 2/3 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar. I also like to use 1/3 cup of dark brown sugar. It adds an extra richness to the cookie dough, a little extra depth of flavor, so I really recommend it. If you don't have dark brown sugar, you can use an additional 1/3 cup of light brown sugar, and you want that to be firmly packed. We're also going to use 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. And now you're going to need an electric mixer. You can absolutely use a stand mixer if you have one. Today I'm just using my hand mixer. We are going to beat together our butter and our sugars until everything is well combined and creamy. I'm just going to pause for a minute and use my spatula to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl. I want to make sure I'm not missing any pockets of butter or sugar in here. And now we're going to beat everything together again on high speed for about a minute. This is going to help give us a cookie dough bite with a nice, slightly creamy consistency. The next ingredient that you're going to need is 1/4 cup of sweetened condensed milk. Now, when I have shared cookie dough recipes in the past, like my edible cookie dough or my cookie dough dip, I've gotten a few complaints that the cookie dough is a little bit grainy. That's really not surprising because the sugars that are in that cookie dough are not being baked, so they're not melting, so of course you're going to taste some of that grain from the sugar. To me, that's what cookie dough tastes like. However, I have heard the complaints, and so in an effort to cut back on that little bit of graininess, we'll still have some from the sugar, as there should be, but we're going to sweeten the cookie dough bites with some sweetened condensed milk. This obviously doesn't have any grit to it, so we can cut back on our sugars, but add some sweetness this way. This is going to help give our cookie dough a nice, pretty creamy consistency. It's going to taste really nice when you bite into it, cuts back on the grit, and if you're worried about opening up a can of condensed milk, just use 1/4 cup. I'll leave some links to other recipes that also don't use a full can of condensed milk in the description below. That way you can use up that whole can. So once you've added your condensed milk, we are also going to add 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla extract and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now we'll need our mixer again, and we're going to stir everything together on low speed until it's combined, and then we'll increase our speed to high and beat it again for another 1 to 3 minutes. We want to beat it on this high speed because that also helps dissolve a little bit of that sugar, helps with that grittiness that some of you seem to not like, and it's just going to give us a really nice consistency for the cookie dough bite overall. Some of this is getting up high on the sides of the bowl, so I'm just going to pause and scrape everything back down. Then we'll keep on mixing everything. The next thing you need for your cookie dough is your heat-treated flour. So as long as that has cooled completely, and I can't stress this enough, do not add it while it's warm or you will have a soupy mess. But so long as your flour has cooled completely, let's go ahead and move over to that. Now, before we go any further, you're going to want a tablespoon, and we're going to measure out and reserve 4 tablespoons of this flour. That is not the proper way to measure a tablespoon, but for today's recipe, that will work just fine. Now set aside this 4 tablespoons of flour, and we are going to add the remaining flour, which is 2 cups that's left. We're going to add this gradually into our cookie dough mixture. You can use a spoon to do this. I'm just feeling a little lazy right now. Now here's where that reserved flour comes in. We have 4 tablespoons of flour that we've reserved, and we may not use all of it. What we're going to do is you want to take a look at the consistency, the texture of your cookie dough at this point. It's probably going to be too sticky to nicely roll into a ball. This one's definitely too soft. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an additional tablespoon of heat-treated flour, 1 tablespoon at a time, until the proper consistency is reached. And I'll show you what that looks like once we get there. This is still a bit too soft, so we're going to add another tablespoon. We're getting there, but we're going to need to add just a little bit more flour. So at this point, our cookie dough is starting to actually look like cookie dough. It's thicker, you can tell by how the mixer's moving through it, and if we try to roll it, it rolls pretty nicely. It's still a little bit soft. I want it to be just a little bit firmer, so I'm going to add that last tablespoon of flour, and then we should be good. Now keep in mind, you won't always need to add all 4 tablespoons. I know there's sometimes some variation in how people measure flour, so I just wanted to accommodate for that and make sure you have enough extra flour that you can get this cookie dough to the right consistency with our heat-treated flour. So this is actually perfect right now. I can roll it into a nice smooth ball. This is what we're looking for. Of course, now we need our chocolate chips. I like to use mini chocolate chips, and you'll need 1 cup. And I'm just going to use my spatula to stir these into the dough. I like to scoop these cookie dough bites to be about 2 teaspoons in size. It's a nice size, about 2 bites, not too rich, works perfectly for me, and I just like to use this little cookie scoop, though you certainly don't have to. This cookie dough should not be sticky at all. We should have added enough flour to prevent that, but keep in mind our butter has been through quite a workout. It's been warmed up a lot, so the cookie dough might seem a little bit oily in your hands. Don't worry, as these cookie dough balls set, the butter will re-solidify and they shouldn't be oily. Once you've rolled out your cookie dough, all that's left to do is enjoy them. Now keep in mind, if you try to eat them right away, they are going to be pretty soft, but if you let them sit at room temperature or in the fridge, they'll firm up even more and they'll be nice, sturdy cookie dough balls. And that is how easy these are to make. I hope you guys enjoy this less grainy cookie dough recipe, and if you try it out, please let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. If you like cookie dough, you are going to love these.